I was on my way to my daughter's house for dinner, looking forward to a warm family evening when my lawyer sent me a message. Call me urgently. My heart skipped a beat. I dialed the number, and what he told me about my daughter shocked me. You won't believe what she wanted to do. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. My hands were steady on the quarterly reports when my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with Michael's name. Call me immediately. Emergency regarding Ada. Mr. The pen slipped from my fingers. 30 years of building Hansen Tech, and I'd never seen Michael Reed write emergency about family. I dialed before the screen went dark. Why? His voice was professional steel. I need to warn you. Ada filed a lawsuit. She wants you declared incompetent to run Hansen. The words hit like ice water. What are you saying? That's impossible. She's my daughter. She has a group of shareholders. They claim you've lost your edge due to emotional instability. I dropped into my chair. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Seattle's skyline blurred. The same view I'd watched for decades while building this company for her. How much time does she have? Hearing in 1 week. We need to act fast. My mouth went dry. 1 week? Why? She's been preparing this for months. The documentation is extensive. Financial records showing supposedly erratic decisions. Testimonies from board meetings. I stood pacing between my desk and the window. Rain streaked the glass like tears I couldn't shed. What testimonies? Claims about emotional outbursts. Questionable, strategic choices. They're painting you as a man losing control. That's absurd. But even as I said it, doubt crept in. Had I shown too much passion in recent meetings? Defended old strategies too fiercely? I know it is. But they have paperwork. Why? Lots of it. The office felt smaller suddenly. Awards lining the walls, photos of groundbreaking ceremonies, all meaningless if my own daughter could take it away. Who else knows? The filing is sealed for now. But the shareholders she's recruited, James Corbin, Patricia Wheeler, 3 others, they're meeting tomorrow. I gripped the phone tighter. She recruited them with promises of higher dividends under new leadership. Her leadership, the betrayal cut deeper than any business loss I'd faced. Etta, my brilliant, ambitious daughter, the one I'd groomed to eventually take over. But not like this. Never like this. What do you need from me? Everything. Financial records, medical documentation, proving your competence, character witnesses. We're building a defense from scratch in 7 days. I closed my eyes. 48 hours ago, I'd been planning to mention her promotion to CEO within the year. Now, she was trying to destroy me. Why? Are you there? I'm here. My voice sounded foreign. Schedule whatever meetings you need. I'll clear my calendar. Good. And why? Don't confront her yet. We need to understand their strategy first. After hanging up, I sat in the growing darkness. Seattle's lights twinkled below, but the warmth had left the room, left my life. I gathered my things mechanically. Coat, briefcase, keys. The same routine I'd followed for 30 years, but everything had changed in one phone call. The elevator descended in silence. 50 floors down, my legs felt unsteady. In the parking garage, I sat in my car for 10 minutes, hands on the steering wheel, trying to make sense of it. Ada was having dinner with her family tonight, our weekly tradition. Should I go pretend nothing had happened? The thought of sitting across from her, making small talk while she planned my destruction. But maybe I needed to see her face, study her expressions, understand who my daughter had become. I started the engine and pulled into Seattle's evening traffic, heading toward Bellevue, toward answers I wasn't sure I wanted to find. Ida's front door opened before I could knock. She stood there in her cream sweater, smile perfectly calibrated. Dad, right on time. Her hug felt rehearsed. Come in, it's freezing out there. I studied her face for cracks in the mask. Found none. Sophie's been asking about Grandpa all day. Etta led me through the foyer. She drew you another picture. The house smelled like roasted chicken and lies. I followed her into the open kitchen where Trevor was setting the table. He looked up with nervous energy. "Why? Good to see you." His handshake lingered too long. "Can I get you a drink? Wine? Something stronger?" "Wine's fine." I watched Ida move around the kitchen, efficient, controlled, the same way she handled board meetings. Sophie bounded in, wearing paint-stained overalls. "Grandpa." I lifted her easily, grateful for something genuine in this house of pretense. "What's this? I hear about a picture. It's us, at the office. See, that's you at your big desk. And that's me in the spinning chair." She thrust a crayon drawing at me. Stick figures in what resembled Hansen Tech's logo colors. Innocent, trusting. "It's beautiful, sweetheart." I kissed her forehead, catching Ada watching us. Something flickered across her expression. Guilt. Calculation. "Sophie, wash your hands for dinner," Trevor said, his voice too bright. Ida moved between stove and counter with practiced efficiency. "Dad, you look tired. Maybe you should rest more." The loaded question. I met her eyes. "Work keeps me sharp. By the way, how are things in the finance department?" She paused, wooden spoon halfway to her mouth for tasting. "Let's not talk about work at dinner." "Since when?" I kept my tone light. "You usually love discussing quarterly projections." "Not tonight." She turned back to the stove. "Family time is sacred. Sacred like loyalty used to be." Trevor cleared his throat. "Sophie drew that picture during her art time today. She's been talking about visiting the office again." "Maybe next week," I said, wondering if I'd still have an office next week. Sophie climbed into her booster seat. "Grandpa, can you tell the story about the first computer?" "Which story, sweetheart?" "When you built the company in the garage." I glanced at Etta. She was slicing chicken with surgical precision. "That was before your mommy was born. We had nothing but ideas and determination." "And Grandma Elna helped," Sophie added. The knife paused. Ida's shoulders tensed. "Yes," I said softly. "Grandma Elna helped with everything." Silence stretched. Trevor filled it by turning on background music, something classical and safe. Dinner proceeded with artificial normalcy. Sophie chattered about preschool. Trevor discussed his latest architectural project. Ida asked polite questions about my health, my sleep, whether I was eating properly. Every word felt like reconnaissance. "The chicken is excellent," I said. "Mom's recipe." Ida's voice carried an edge. She always said cooking was about love, not perfection. Another loaded statement. Elena had said that, usually while trying to get me to spend less time at the office. She was wise about many things. Yes, she was. Ida's fork clicked against her plate. She understood priorities. The accusation hung in the air. Sophie looked between us, sensing the undercurrent. "Grandpa, why are you sad?" Out of the mouths of babes. "I'm not sad, sweetheart. Just thinking about what? About how much I love our family dinners." Ida's eyes met mine across the table. For a moment, I saw the little girl who used to wait by the window for me to come home. But the moment passed. "More wine?" Trevor asked, already reaching for the bottle. The evening crawled forward. Dessert, coffee. Sophie showing me her latest drawings. Normal family rituals, masking extraordinary betrayal. At 8:15, I stood to leave. "Thank you for dinner as always." It was perfect. Ida walked me to the door. "Dad, are you sure you're okay? You seem different tonight." I studied her face. The concern looked genuine. Maybe it was. Maybe she'd convinced herself this was for my own good. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just reflecting on how much Hansen Tech means to me. To our family." Something shifted in her expression. "Guard going up. Drive safely. The roads are slick tonight." I kissed her cheek. She didn't pull away, But she didn't lean into it either. "Good night, Ida. Good night, Dad." The door closed behind me with a soft click. I stood on her front steps, rain beginning to fall again. Through the window, I could see her clearing dishes, moving efficiently, methodically, planning my destruction. I parked overlooking Lake Union, city lights reflecting off the black water. My hand shook as I dialed Michael again. "Why, how did dinner go?" "Like a performance. She knows how to act concerned while stabbing me in the back." Rain droomed on the windshield. "Tell me everything. She's been preparing for 6 months. She has records of your emotional outbursts at meetings." "What outbursts?" "I've always controlled myself." "The Anderson acquisition meeting. When you rejected their lowball offer, apparently you raised your voice." She documented it as irrational, anger-threatening company relationships. I remembered that meeting. I'd been passionate, not angry. There was a difference. What else? Financial decisions she's labeled as sentiment over strategy. The charity partnership with Elena's foundation. The employee retention program. Things that cost money but weren't strictly profitable. My throat tightened. Those were good decisions, I know, but she's framing them as emotional choices rather than business logic. What's her timeline? Hearing next Friday. If she wins, she gets temporary control while you undergo psychological evaluation. And if I refuse, the shareholders can vote you out anyway. She's got enough backing. I drove through empty Seattle streets, processing the scope of her betrayal, not just attacking me, but dismantling everything I'd built with careful precision. At home, I climbed to my study. 30 years of memories lined the walls. Awards, photos, the detritus of a successful life. I opened my safe and pulled out Elna's letters, the ones she'd written during her final months, when she knew she was dying, when she'd tried to warn me about priorities. "Why? Ida needs your attention more than the company does. She thinks you don't love her." I dismissed Elena's concerns. Then Ida was successful, independent, thriving. How could she doubt my love? But doubt apparently had festered into something darker. I found the folder marked EA Personal. School records, report cards, photos from company events where she'd stood beside me, proud and eager. When had that pride curdled into resentment? My computer chimed with an encrypted email from Michael. Legal documents. Ada's formal complaint dense with accusations and medical recommendations. Subject displays increasing emotional volatility and attachment to outdated business practices. His refusal to embrace modern corporate strategies suggests diminished cognitive flexibility consistent with early-stage dementia or depression following spousal loss. Depression following spousal loss. They were using Ella Lenena's death against me, using my grief as evidence of incompetence. I poured 3 fingers of scotch and kept reading. Character witnesses who testified to my declining judgment. Financial analysts who'd argue my decisions were emotionally driven. Medical experts prepared to suggest I needed compassionate intervention, a full-scale character assassination wrapped in concern for my well-being. The brilliance was undeniable and painful. At 1 a.m., I closed the laptop and sat in darkness. Rain continued against the windows. The house felt enormous and empty. Elena's photograph watched from my desk. She'd known this day would come, had tried to prevent it. She doesn't understand why you love the company more than her, but I didn't love the company more. I'd built it for her, for our family's future. Every late night, every missed dinner, every sacrifice had been for them. Somehow I'd failed to communicate that, failed to show Ida that my ambition was love, expressed in the only language I knew. Now she was speaking a different language, the language of corporate warfare, and she'd learned it well, too well. I opened my phone and started typing notes, names of allies, potential strategies, ways to prove my competence while dismantling her case. If Ida wanted a war, she'd get one, but she'd underestimated her opponent. I hadn't built Hansen by surrendering to superior forces. I'd built it by outthinking them. Dawn was still hours away, but I felt something stirring. Not just anger or hurt, strategy, purpose. My daughter had declared war on everything I'd built, everything I was. Time to remind her who taught her how to fight. The elevator climbed toward Steve's floor with deliberate precision. I shifted the briefcase containing 2 weeks of evidence. Time to stop playing defense. Steve Wilson's corner office occupied the same building as mine, 3 floors down. Same view of Lake Union. Different perspective on everything else. His assistant waved me through. "He's expecting you, Mr. Hanson." Steve looked up from quarterly projections, reading glasses perched on his nose. 60 years of friendship in those familiar blue eyes. Why? Perfect timing. I was just reviewing that we need to talk. I set the briefcase on his conference table with a deliberate thud. Close the door. Something in my tone made him move quickly. The door clicked shut. What's wrong? Ed is trying to have me declared incompetent. Steve's face went through 3 expressions in 2 seconds. Confusion, disbelief, concern. That's impossible. I opened the briefcase. Legal documents spread across the polished table like battle plans. She filed suit 2 weeks ago, wants temporary control while I undergo psychological evaluation. Steve sank into his chair. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I needed to understand the scope first. I pulled out the shareholder analysis. Look at this. The document showed our investor base mapped like a military campaign. Green for loyal, red for convinced by Ada, yellow for undecided. Too much red. Corbin's already committed. I said Patricia Wheeler too, 3 others. She promised Corbin 15% dividend increase based on what? Staff cuts. She talks about implementing AI and automation. I felt something cold settle in my chest. That would destroy the company culture we built for 30 years. But young shareholders don't understand this. They only care about numbers. Steve had been monitoring internal communications. Co-founder privileges included access to company email systems. The intelligence he'd gathered painted a clear picture. Ada had been methodical. Each shareholder approached with tailored promises. Corbin got profit projections. Wheeler received efficiency studies. Others heard modernization speeches. She's selling them a fantasy, I said. A profitable fantasy. Steve pulled up email chains on his computer. Look at these revenue forecasts she's sharing. The numbers were aggressive, unrealistic, based on firing half our senior staff and automating customer service. This isn't innovation. It's corporate vandalism. Try explaining that to shareholders watching tech stocks soar. I spread financial reports across the table. Our actual performance over 3 years. Steady growth, consistent profits, satisfied employees. We've averaged 12% annual growth, I said. Our retention rate is 94%. Customer satisfaction scores are industry-leading. But she's promising 25% growth through strategic restructuring. The phrase made me sick. Strategic restructuring. Corporate speak for destroying lives. What about Corbin? Is he completely lost? Steve leaned back. Maybe not. He respects long-term stability, but he's scared of missing the next big wave. Then we remind him what happens to companies that chase every trend. I pulled out a folder marked Competition Analysis. Companies that had followed EDA's preferred strategy. Most had imploded within 5 years. Remember TechFlow Industries? Steve nodded grimly. Automated everything. Stock price tripled. Then customer service collapsed. Exactly. They're worth 20% of their peak now. We spent the next hour mapping strategy, which shareholders could be saved. What evidence would convince them? How to present our case without seeming desperate. The rain outside had intensified. February in Seattle meant constant gray skies, perfect weather for corporate warfare. There's something else, Steve said quietly. Her legal representation. Laura Blake. Michael briefed me. She's good. Aggressive. Turns courtrooms into theater. Then, we give her a better show. Steve's computer chimed with a calendar reminder. Board meeting next week. Routine quarterly review. She'll make her move there, I said, unless we move first. I closed the briefcase, but left the analysis documents spread across Steve's table. Visual evidence of our campaign. Schedule a meeting with Corbin, I said. This week. Private lunch. What's your angle? Fear. Show him what happens to investors who bet against proven leadership. Steve was already reaching for his phone. Scrolling through contacts. Thursday work. Morton's downtown. Perfect. Neutral ground. The afternoon light was fading outside. In 2 hours, I transformed from victim to general. Ida wanted a war. She'd get one. But she'd underestimated her enemy. I hadn't built Hanson by surrendering to superior forces. I'd built it by outthinking them. Michael's law office occupied the 20th floor of Columbia Center. All mahogany and leather-bound authority. I arrived 10 minutes early, briefcase heavy with Steve's intelligence. Michael appeared in his office doorway. Ready for war? His conference room had been transformed into a command center. Ida's lawsuit documents covered one wall. My defense materials occupied another. Between them, empty space waiting for battle plants. Show me everything, I said. Michael lifted a thick folder. Ida's official filing. 47 pages of accusations, evidence, and medical recommendations. I flipped through pages of surgical character assassination, every passionate defense of company values, reframed as emotional instability. Every innovative risk repositioned as declining judgment. She claims you've lost touch with market reality. Our profits grew 12% last year. But she says that's due to her initiatives, not yours. Classic rewriting history, with herself as the hero. What about her evidence? Michael pulled out a separate stack. 6 months of documentation, meetings where you allegedly showed inappropriate emotional responses, financial decisions she labels as sentiment over strategy, the Anderson acquisition, the charity partnership with Ella Lanina's foundation, the employee retention program. All good decisions, all profitable in the long term, all dismissed as emotional weakness. And her legal representation. Laura Blake. Michael's expression darkened. 38 wins in 42 competency hearings. She specializes in family business disputes, meaning she knows how to make loving fathers look like declining patriarchs. I studied Blake's photograph on Michael's computer. Sharp features, predatory smile. Woman who'd built a career on destroying family legacies. Laura Blake is known for turning court sessions into theater. Then we write a better script. Michael pulled out our defense strategy. Character witnesses, financial evidence, medical evaluations. Proving my mental acuity. I've scheduled cognitive assessments with 3 independent doctors. Blood work, psychological evaluation, complete physical. Overkill, necessary. Blake will question your competence from every angle. The irony was bitter. At 62, I was sharper than most men half my age. But Ada had weaponized my grief. Over Elena's death. She's claiming delayed trauma response. Emotional deterioration following spousal loss, manifesting in poor business judgment and increased volatility. Using Elena's memory against me, the calculation was breathtaking. What's our counter strategy? Michael smiled for the first time that morning. Turn her greatest strength into weakness. He spread out our own evidence. Ada's promises to shareholders, unrealistic financial projections, email chains showing her 6-month deception campaign. Breach of fiduciary duty, conspiracy to defraud shareholders, intentional infliction of emotional distress. The last charge felt personal, which it was. Will it work? It'll force her to defend her own actions instead of just attacking yours. Michael produced a formal document, our counter lawsuit. 23 pages of legal accusations wrapped in corporate language. She'll be furious. Good. Angry people make mistakes. I signed the papers with steady hands. No trembling now, just cold determination. When do we file? Today. Blake will have it by 5 p.m. The rain outside had turned to sleep. February in Seattle was always brutal. Perfect weather for legal warfare. One more thing, Michael said. The hearing date? March 15th, 3 weeks. I calculated rapidly. Enough time to prepare witnesses. If we move fast. Michael's assistant knocked. Excuse me, Mr. Wilson is here for the 11:30 appointment. Steve entered, carrying his own briefcase. The alliance was expanding. Gentlemen, he said, ready to save our company. The three of us stood around the conference table looking at evidence of family betrayal spread across polished mahogany. Wanted to play legal games, I said. Now she gets to learn the rules. Outside, Seattle's skyline disappeared into gray mist. But inside this room, clarity was crystallizing. War had been declared. Positions had been chosen. Time to remind my daughter who taught her how to fight. I arrived 15 minutes early, choosing a table by the window overlooking the market's controlled chaos. March in Seattle brought tentative spring warmth. Vendors hawking early flowers beneath cloudy skies. The coffee was bitter. Appropriate appeared at 2:15 sharp, dressed in her charcoal business suit. Armor for battle. She surveyed the calf before approaching, calculating exits and witnesses. Dad, she sat across from me, maintaining distance. Thank you for coming. Your message said it was important. I studied her face. She looked tired, thinner than at our last dinner. Carrying the weight of deception wasn't easy, even for her. How's Sophie? Fine. Asking about you. The words carried accusation. I was the absent grandfather, the workaholic father, the man who chose business over family. And Trevor busy with his projects. Her voice was carefully neutral. We were dancing around the real conversation. Two combatants testing defenses before engaging. Ida, why didn't you come to me directly? Something flickered in her expression. Surprise, guilt about what? Still maintaining the lie. Impressive about your concerns, your ideas for the company, your plans. When I tried, you were always busy with the company. There it was. The heart of everything. I built this for you. Her laugh was bitter. No. Dad. You built it for yourself. I was just an addition. The accusation hit like a physical blow. That's not true, isn't it? She leaned forward. Anger breaking through careful control. Every family dinner interrupted by business calls. Every vacation cut short for meetings. Every school play you missed because of board presentations. Memories flooded back. Elena's disappointed faces, Ida's resigned acceptance when I couldn't attend her college graduation ceremony. I was providing for our family. You were feeding your ego. Silence stretched between us. Market vendors called their prices outside. Normal life continuing, while we dissected 35 years of accumulated hurt. I want to modernize the company, but you block all my initiatives. I want to preserve what works. What works? Her voice rose slightly. Dad, we're falling behind. Tech companies are outpacing us. Our systems are outdated. Our methods are antiquated. Our methods built something lasting, something dying. She pulled out her phone, showing me industry projections, charts and graphs that painted Hansen as a dinosaur waiting for extinction. Automation could increase our efficiency by 40%. AI implementation could cut operational costs in half. Remote work options could expand our talent pool globally and eliminate half our workforce in the process. Some positions would be restructured, destroyed. I finished. You're talking about destroying lives, families, people who've given us decades of loyalty. Her jaw tightened. Business isn't about loyalty, Dad. It's about results. When did you become so cold? When I realized sentiment doesn't pay dividends. The words hung between us like a blade. This wasn't my daughter speaking. This was someone else entirely. Who taught you that? You did. She met my eyes directly. Every time you chose the company over us. Every time you proved that success mattered more than people. I felt something break inside my chest. Not anger, not betrayal, understanding. I never meant. You never meant a lot of things, Dad. She gathered her phone and purse. But intentions don't change results. Ida, wait. She stood, looking down at me with Elena's eyes in a stranger's face. I'm not the little girl waiting by the window anymore. I don't need your approval. I don't need your permission. And I don't need your company. But you want it. I want to save it from you. She turned and walked toward the exit, heels clicking against hardwood floors. At the doorways, she paused. Give Sophie my love. Then she was gone, disappearing into the market crowd. I sat alone with cold coffee and colder understanding. My daughter wasn't just taking my company. She was taking revenge for 35 years of perceived neglect. And maybe she was right. The courthouse steps were slick with morning rain. I climbed them slowly, briefcase in hand, watching Ita's legal team arrange themselves like predators. Laura Blake stood at their center, sharp suit gleaming under gray Seattle skies. Ida wore navy blue. Conservative, competent, the beautiful daughter, protecting family assets from a declining patriarch. She didn't meet my eyes. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with quiet energy. Shareholders filled the gallery. Business reporters, curious attorneys drawn by family drama, played out in public. Michael touched my arm. Remember, stay calm. Answer clearly. Judge Harrison called court to order. 70 years old. Silver hair. Reputation for no-nonsense proceedings. Case number 2025347. Hansen versus Hansen Tech Incorporated. Laura Blake rose like a striking snake. Your Honor, this case concerns an aging executive whose judgment has become compromised by grief and stubbornness. She walked toward the jury box, gesturing elegantly. Performance art masquerading as legal argument. Mr. Hansen has lost the ability to make rational decisions. His emotional attachment to outdated business practices threatens shareholder value and employee security. Documents flew across the screen. Financial charts, meeting transcripts, 6 months of carefully curated evidence. The plaintiff, Miss Ida Hansen Miller, seeks temporary guardianship to protect the company her father built from his own declining capabilities. Blake's voice carried across the courtroom like honey-coated poison. Professional, persuasive, deadly. Then Ida took the witness stand. My daughter, my brilliant, ambitious daughter, sworn in under oath to destroy me. Miss Hansen Miller, Blake began softly. Please describe your father's recent behavior. My father is guided by emotions, not business logic. Ida's voice stayed steady. He makes decisions based on personal feelings rather than financial data. Can you provide examples? The charity partnership with my mother's foundation. It costs us $200,000 annually with no measurable return. When I suggested redirecting those funds, he became agitated. Agitated? Elena's memory reduced to a line item. What about strategic planning? He refuses to consider automation or AI integration. Claims it would destroy company culture. Meanwhile, our competitors gain market share through technological advancement. Blake nodded sympathetically. How has this affected company performance? We're stagnating. Growth has slowed. Efficiency metrics lag behind industry standards. Lies wrapped in half-truth. Our growth was steady, sustainable. Our employees were loyal because we treated them as people, not resources. In your professional opinion, what does the company need? Fresh leadership, modern strategies. Focus on profits rather than sentiment. The words hit like physical blows. This wasn't my daughter speaking. This was someone else entirely. Michael's cross-examination was surgical. Miss Hansen Miller. What was Hansen Tech's profit margin last quarter? 12%. And the quarter before, 11.7%. So, under your father's supposedly incompetent leadership, profits are increasing. Short-term fluctuations don't indicate long-term viability. What about employee retention? 94% annually. Industry average at a hesitated 67%. So, your father maintains higher employee satisfaction than industry standard while increasing profits. Retention can indicate resistance to necessary change. Michael smiled coldly. Or exceptional leadership, Blake objected. Judge sustained, but damage was done. James Corbin testified next. Straightforward, profit-focused. We need leadership that prioritizes shareholder value. Miss Hanson Miller understands modern business realities. When the morning session ended, I felt drained. Watching your daughter publicly dissect your competence required a strength I didn't know I possessed. But Michael squeezed my shoulder. Phase 1 complete. Huh? Tomorrow, we fight back. Outside, Seattle's spring rain continued. Ida walked past without acknowledging me, surrounded by her legal team. My little girl, who used to wait by the window for Daddy to come home. Now, she couldn't wait for me to disappear. My assistant knocked softly. Mr. Hanson, there's something you need to see. Sarah placed a folder on my desk marked Employee Communications Confidential. Her face was grim. Ida's been holding private meetings, promising salary increases that would bankrupt us. I opened the folder. Meeting transcripts, email threads, 6 weeks of secret promises to key employees, 20% salary increases across engineering, 30% for department heads, stock options that didn't exist. Where did you get this? People talk, Mr. Hanson, especially when promises sound too good to be true. Steve Wilson arrived as I was reading the worst of it. His expression matched Sarah's. We have a problem, why? He dropped his own briefcase on the conference table. Ed is approaching new shareholders, pension funds, investment groups, painting you as an obstacle to explosive growth. Steve pulled out printed emails. Ida promises employees 20% salary increases based on what? Magic. She's telling them automation will cut costs so dramatically that massive raises are inevitable. The mathematics were impossible. Even full automation wouldn't generate enough savings for her promised increases. She's committing fraud. Gets better. Steve powered up his laptop. I've been monitoring internal communications. Found something interesting about her lawyer. Laura Blake's face appeared on screen. Professional photograph attached to a news article. Blake was sanctioned by the Bar Association 2 years ago. Suborn perjury, in a similar case. Temporarily suspended from practice. My phone rang. Michael's number. Why? I have evidence that Laura Blake violated ethical standards. What kind of evidence? She coached Eda's testimony. Told her exactly what to say, how to phrase accusations. That's witness tampering. The pieces were falling into place. Ida's polished performance hadn't been natural confidence. It had been scripted. More importantly, Michael continued, I found financial irregularities in Ida's account management. What irregularities? EDA transferred funds between accounts without your consent, 3 separate occasions. Total amount, $847,000. The number hit like ice water. For what? Legal fees, consultant payments, campaign expenses for her takeover bid? I looked at Steve. His expression confirmed he was hearing this, too. That's embezzlement. Technically, it's unauthorized use of corporate funds. But yes, it's criminal behavior. Steve leaned forward. This could change the case direction. More than change it, this could destroy her. The irony was bitter. My daughter had wanted to prove my incompetence by demonstrating her own criminal stupidity. I walked to the window, looking out at Seattle's skyline, the city where I'd built everything, where Elna had lived and died, where our family had grown and fractured. Michael, how do we present this carefully? We don't want to look vindictive, just competent. And Blake's ethics violations, I'll file a complaint with the Bar Association. Simultaneously, present evidence to the judge. Steve was organizing documents across my conference table. Financial records, employee communications, email chains showing Eda's deception. The question is timing, I said. Next hearing is Monday. Blake will expect us on defense again. Instead, we attack. I studied the evidence spread across my office. 30 years of building a company. And my daughter had tried to destroy it with 6 months of lies. But lies eventually revealed themselves. Schedule a meeting with our character witnesses. I want them prepared for aggressive cross-examination. Steve nodded. Already done. Patricia from accounting, David from engineering. They'll testify to your competence and her deceptions. What about the employees she made promises to? Most are confused. They trusted her. But the numbers don't add up. The late afternoon sun slanted through my office windows. Seattle in April could be beautiful when the rain stopped. I'll head home early, I said. Plan our presentation tonight. Steve gathered his documents. We've got enough ammunition to sink a battleship. Let's hope we can aim it accurately. After they left, I sat alone in my office. The silence felt different now. Not empty. Focused. Tomorrow we'd remind everyone who built Hansen Tech and why it deserved better than my daughter's desperate ambitions. The courthouse felt different this time. Tension crackled like electricity as all parties assembled. Eda sat with Blake, confident from their previous performance. They hadn't seen what was coming. Judge Harrison called court to order. Mr. Reed, you may present additional evidence. Michael rose slowly, deliberately, a predator who'd found wounded prey. Your Honor, the plaintiff conducted unauthorized financial operations. Blake shot to her feet. Objection. This is beyond the scope. Overruled. Continue, Mr. Reed. Michael approached the evidence table like a surgeon selecting instruments. During discovery, we found 3 unauthorized transfers from corporate accounts. Total amount, $847,000. The number echoed through the courtroom. Eda's face went pale. These funds were used to finance Miss Hansen Miller's legal campaign against her father without board approval. Without documentation, without authorization. Michael projected bank statements onto the courtroom screen, dates, amounts, recipient accounts. This constitutes embezzlement of corporate funds. Blake was scrambling. Your Honor, these accusations are desperate attempts at discreditation. Desperate? Michael smiled coldly. These are bank records. Mathematics doesn't lie. He turned toward Eda. She looked smaller somehow. The confident executive replaced by a trapped woman watching her world collapse. Furthermore, we have evidence of witness tampering. Blake's composure cracked completely. That's preposterous. Miss. Blake coached her client's testimony, provided specific phrases, emotional cues, strategic answers. We have recordings. Judge Harrison leaned forward. Recordings. Office security cameras with audio capability. Miss. Blake's coaching sessions were inadvertently recorded during building security sweeps. The judge's expression darkened. I want those recordings reviewed immediately. When my turn came to testify, I felt calm, centered, ready. Mr. Hansen, Michael began formally. How long have you managed Hansen Tech? 30 years. I founded the company in 1995 with $50,000 borrowed against my house. Current annual revenue, $247 million. Net profit, $29.6 million. Employee count. Have you been declared incompetent by any medical professional? No. I underwent comprehensive evaluation last month. Cognitive function tests, psychological assessment, physical examination. All results were normal for my age. Michael presented my medical reports, clean bills of health from 3 independent doctors. In your professional opinion, why is your daughter pursuing this legal action? I looked at Eda. She was staring at her hands, unable to meet my eyes. She believes I've prioritized company culture over maximum profits. She wants to implement automation and cost-cutting measures that would eliminate jobs and reduce employee benefits. Is profit maximization always the correct business strategy? No. Sustainable growth requires balancing profitability with employee satisfaction, customer loyalty, and community responsibility. How has this philosophy affected company performance? We've maintained consistent growth for 30 years. Employee retention exceeds industry standards. Customer satisfaction scores remain in the 95th percentile. Michael nodded. I've managed this company for 30 years and know every number, every employee, every strategic decision. My daughter wants to sacrifice long-term stability for short-term gains. Blake's cross-examination was desperate. Mr. Hansen, isn't it true that you've resisted modernization? I've resisted reckless change. Technology serves business goals, not the reverse. Your daughter claims you're emotionally unstable. My daughter is young and impatient. She confuses passion with instability, conviction with stubbornness. She says, "You make decisions based on sentiment. I make decisions based on experience." 30 years of building something lasting. Blake kept attacking, but her arrows were missing their target. The evidence was overwhelming. Ida had overplayed her hand spectacularly. When Corbin testified again, his confidence had evaporated. I may have been overly optimistic about projected returns. Are you still supporting Miss Hansen Miller's leadership bid? Long pause. I'm reconsidering my position. Blake's closing argument sounded hollow. Despite these allegations, the core issue remains. Mr. Hansen's resistance to necessary modernization. But Michael's response was surgical. The core issue is whether a daughter can steal her father's company through lies, embezzlement, and witness tampering. Judge Harrison's face was granite. Order in the court. Given the serious allegations of financial misconduct and potential ethics violations, this case requires additional review. Ada finally looked at me. Her eyes were Elna's eyes, filled with confusion and fear. The court will reconvene in 1 week for final decision. As the courtroom emptied, Ida approached slowly. Dad. For a moment, she looked like the little girl who used to ask for bedtime stories. I never meant for it to go this far. But it did, sweetheart. It did. She walked away with her ruined legal team, leaving me alone with the wreckage of our family. Victory felt hollow when it meant destroying your own daughter. All rise for the Honorable Judge Harrison. The courtroom stood as one. Shareholders, lawyers, family members who'd become strangers. I felt Steve's reassuring presence beside me as the judge entered with the weight of decision. Judge Harrison settled behind his bench, papers arranged with judicial precision. Please, be seated. The silence was absolute. 3 months of family warfare reduced to this moment. In the matter of Hansen versus Hansen Tech Incorporated, I have reached my decision. My heart hammered against my ribs. Across the aisle, Ida sat rigid in her chair, Laura Blake's hand on her shoulder. After reviewing all evidence, testimony, and documentation, the court finds no grounds for declaring Mr. Hansen incompetent to manage his business affairs. Relief flooded through me like warm water, but it felt hollow. Furthermore, the evidence of financial irregularities and potential witness tampering raises serious concerns about the plaintiff's conduct. Ida's shoulders sagged. The fight went out of her completely. The case is dismissed. Mr. Hansen retains full control of Hansen Tech Corporation. Steve leaned forward. Justice has prevailed. But justice felt cold when it meant destroying your daughter. Michael shook my hand professionally. Congratulations. Why? Your competency has been vindicated. Vindicated? The word tasted bitter. Across the courtroom, James Corbin was already moving toward us. Opportunistic, as always. Mr. Hansen, I want to express my full confidence in your continued leadership. Yesterday, he was backing Ida's revolution. Today, he was my loyal supporter. Of course, James. Business as usual. Laura Blake gathered her papers with mechanical precision. Her career had taken a significant blow. Ida sat motionless, staring at her hands. The courtroom began emptying. Reporters scribbled notes. Shareholders whispered strategies. Normal people, returning to normal lives after watching a family tear itself apart. But I couldn't move. Victory should feel better than this. Steve touched my arm. You did what you had to do, did I? Or did I just prove Ida right about my priorities? You protected what you built. What we built. The company was safe, my reputation intact, the shareholders reassured. Everything I'd fought for preserved, except my relationship with my daughter. Ida stood slowly, gathering her purse. Trevor waited by the courtroom doors, relief evident on his face. The ordeal was over for him, too. But she looked so small, so defeated. I made a decision that surprised even me. Etta, she turned, eyes red, rimmed but dry, no tears left. Dad, this doesn't have to be the end of our story. Something flickered in her expression. In hope, fear. I lost everything. No, you only lost a battle. Not the war with life. Steve was watching us carefully. Michael pretended to organize papers while listening. Can we talk privately? Ida glanced at Trevor. He nodded encouragingly. Not here, she said quietly. Coffee somewhere neutral. I need time to process this. Of course, but I stepped closer. You're still my daughter. You're still brilliant. You're still capable of great things. Her composure cracked slightly, even after everything I did, especially after everything you did. It took courage to challenge me, even if the method was wrong. She looked at me with Elena's eyes, confused and hurt. But seeing something new? I call you next week. It wasn't much, but it was a beginning. As she walked away with Trevor, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not victory, not vindication. Hope. The company was mine. The family could still be saved. And maybe, just maybe, we could build something better together. 10 days of waiting had led to this bench overlooking Lake Union. The water sparkled in late afternoon sun, Seattle's skyline rising like promises behind the trees. I'd arrived early, needing time to prepare. This conversation would determine whether we had a future or just a legal past. Ida appeared at 3:15, walking slowly across the grass. She wore jeans and a simple sweater. No business armor, no defensive walls. Just my daughter. Dead. She sat beside me, maintaining careful distance. Thank you for coming. I've been thinking about what you said at the courthouse. The lake lapped against the shore, joggers passed. Normal life continuing while we attempted to rebuild ours. Dad, I never felt like you were proud of me. The words hit like physical blows. Ida, every achievement felt invisible. Every success seemed less important than the next board meeting. I turned to face her fully. I was always proud of you. I just didn't know how to show it. Mom tried to tell you. She said I needed words, not just opportunities. Elena's voice echoed across 5 years. She needs your attention more than the company does. Your mother was wiser than I gave her credit for. I wanted to prove I was worthy of your love. My love doesn't need proof. It's unconditional. She laughed bitterly. Then why did it feel so conditional? Why did every conversation become about work? Why was the company always more important? I stared at the water, watching sailboats navigate toward harbor. How do you explain 30 years of misguided priorities? I built Hansen Tech for you, for our family's future. Every late night, every missed dinner, every sacrifice. I thought I was providing security, but you were also providing distance. Yes, I was. The admission felt like releasing held breath. I confused. Providing with parenting, success with love. Ida's eyes filled. I needed my father, not a benefactor, and I needed to learn the difference. Silence stretched between us. Not uncomfortable now. Honest. When I filed that lawsuit, I wasn't just fighting for the company. I was fighting for recognition, for validation that I mattered to you. You've always mattered. I just showed it poorly. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I nearly destroyed everything. No. You nearly saved us. How can you say that? I embezzled money. I lied to shareholders. I tried to have you declared incompetent. You forced honesty. You made us confront what was broken. The lake reflected afternoon clouds. Seattle in late spring felt full of possibility. What happens now? She asked. That depends. Do you still want to modernize the company? You'd trust me with that? What do you say about shared leadership? Ida stared at me. Are you ready to trust me with part of the company? I'm ready to trust you with the future of the company. Her breath caught. Meaning co-CEOs. Your innovation, my experience. Partnership, instead of war. You do that after everything. Because of everything. You were right about modernization. I was right about culture. Together, we could build something Elena would be proud of. Ed stood pacing to the W's edge. I watched her process the proposal, seeing Elena's thoughtfulness in her movements. Full partnership, equal authority, shared responsibility, father-daughter leadership team. She turned back. What about the board? Steve's already supportive. The shareholders want stability and growth. We can provide both. And the employees? They'll respect the Hansen name. Both of us. She walked back, sitting closer this time. I have conditions. Name them. Full transparency. No decisions without consultation. Modern technology implementation. Employee profit-sharing program. Agreed. My conditions. Maintaining company culture. Gradual changes. Not revolutionary. Family time protected. Family time, weekly dinners. No business talk during Sophie's bedtime stories. Elena's foundation continues. Eda smiled for the first time in months. Deal. I extended my hand. Partners? She shook it firmly. Partners. Then she surprised me by leaning forward, hugging me tightly. I love you, Dad. I love you too, sweetheart. I always have. We held each other by Lake Union as the afternoon faded. Father and daughter, becoming something new. Business partners, family, future. The kitchen smelled like Elena's favorite recipe. Ida moved between stove and counter with practiced efficiency. But tonight felt different. Celebration was in every gesture. Dad, I prepared your favorite dish. I arrived carrying a wrapped package and my grandfather's smile. Something smells like your mother's cooking. Same recipe, same love. The table was set formally but warmly. Candles. Good china. The kind of attention reserved for special occasions. Sophie bounded into the room wearing a dress with paint stains. Grandpa. Sophie. Grandpa brought you something special. I handed her the wrapped package. She tore through paper with 4-year-old enthusiasm, revealing a miniature business suit. For when you're ready to run Hansen Tech? Sophie giggled, holding the tiny jacket against herself. Will I be the boss? Someday, sweetheart. Someday you might be. Trevor emerged from his office, architectural plans tucked under his arm. I'm glad we're one family again. So am I. I meant it completely. Dinner conversation flowed naturally. Sophie chattered about preschool. Trevor discussed his latest project, a children's museum downtown. Eda shared preliminary plans for Hansen Tech's technological modernization. Gradual implementation, she emphasized, respecting existing staff while improving efficiency. The best of both worlds, I agreed. After dessert, Ida produced a manila folder, ready to make this official. The partnership agreement was elegant in its simplicity, shared authority, complementary responsibilities, dispute resolution protocols, everything two stubborn business leaders needed to work together. Sophie, are you not sad anymore? I looked down at my granddaughter, who was observing us with childlike wisdom. No, sweetheart. Now Grandpa is happy because Mommy and Grandpa are friends again. Because we're family again. I signed the documents with steady hands. Ida followed, her signature bold and confident. Trevor produced champagne from the refrigerator. I thought we might celebrate. Perfect timing. We stood in the dining room, glasses raised. 4 generations of family, past, present, and future. United again. To Hansen Tech's new future, Ida declared. To family partnerships, I added to not fighting anymore. Sophie contributed solemnly. We laughed. Us clinking glasses carefully to include her apple juice. Trevor raised his glass higher. To Elena, who would have loved seeing this moment. To Elena, we echoed. I felt her presence in the room, in Ida's smile, in Sophie's laughter, in the possibility of healing. The champagne tasted like hope. What happens Monday? Sophie asked. Monday, Mommy and Grandpa go to work together. Ida explained. Like a team? Exactly like a team. I picked up Sophie, spinning her gently. The best team in Seattle. Outside, summer was beginning. Long days, warm nights, new possibilities. Inside, we were beginning, too. Not the same family we'd been before the war. Something better, something honest. As evening deepened, we moved to the living room. Sophie showed me her latest drawings. Ida and Trevor planned next week's schedule. Simple domestic moments that felt profound after months of legal warfare. At 8:30, I prepared to leave. Arms full of Sophie's artwork. Heart full of possibility. See you Monday, partner, Ida said. See you Monday, daughter. The drive home took me through Seattle's familiar streets, past Hansen Tech Tower, past the courthouse where we'd fought, past Pike Place Market, where truth had first emerged, all of it leading to tomorrow, to partnership, to family, to the future Elena had always envisioned for us. I parked in my Capitol Hill driveway and sat for a moment, looking at Sophie's drawings. Stick figures labeled Grandpa and Mommy working together at big desks. A 4-year-old's vision of harmony. Perfect business plan. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.